Hello and welcome to another edition of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. My name is Shelley Smith, and I am thrilled to be here on another gorgeous day here in the Hampton Roads area. Bob, over to you.
Bob McKenna here from the Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, actually from my office on 21 Enterprise Parkway in Hampton. As our regular watchers, and I hope we have regular watchers know, for a while there I was recording from my home, and just recently, probably the last 4 or 5, Shelley, I've come to my office because that's part of pivoting to positivity, I think, and getting back to normal. So I actually have a collared shirt on and a nice sweater. But today we have with us Diane Umstead. Umstead. Which one, Diane?
Umstead. It's fine.
Umstead. Diane Umstead from Smart Beginnings, Virginia Peninsula. And Diane, I'd like to, so Diane is it the executive director of Smart Beginnings, Virginia Peninsula?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Is that the right title? Okay.
Yes.
And today, I'd like to start off with 8 weeks ago, Diane, or 9, let's go say 9 weeks ago, before any of us were thinking that this was going to disrupt our lives as much as it has. Tell us what the mission of SBVP was, and still is. But what were you focused on 9 weeks ago?
Sure. So Smart Beginnings works in a community collaboration and a coalition style to convene people around the importance of the early years, looking at high quality early childhood education and how it affects a child entering kindergarten ready to learn.
So in my mind, as a chamber president focused on things like workforce development, and I know Jennifer Boykin has spoken, Jennifer Boykin, president of Newport News Shipbuilding, has spoken in the past about this, but the 2 carrier build contract that they just got last year, those carriers at the very end, probably the last 5 years or so, will be built by people who are in pre-K right now. So early childhood education is absolutely critical to our future workforce.
It is, and it's absolutely critical to what people are doing right now as well. First of all, just to say, everything that happens in birth to 5 years, 90% of the wiring is occurring because that is at the rate that a child's brain is developing. So their ability to have cognitive skills, to do a good job, to problem solve, to have critical thinking, but also their ability to interact with others and advance their social cues and their knowledge from a social emotional standpoint, as well as physical development. But what we see happening right now is that parents are having to work a completely different way than they had to before. They were forced into that. And yet, the industry of childcare is still a necessity. So if you allow me to elaborate, I'll just talk a little bit about the fact that most parents are working from home, but 1 in 5 families are saying that they need some relief while they're working at home. And then 1/4 of essential workers still need typical hour childcare. But what's happened in Virginia, what's happened on the Greater Peninsula, is that in April, when the governor's guidance came through to have group sizes of 10, including adults caring for children, and I don't know about you, but it's pretty hard to care for babies and toddlers in a group of 10 with social distancing taking place. What ended up happening was a lot of the childcare industry decided to close down. We lost 210,000 spaces for children statewide, and 2,600 businesses had to close down. And I call childcare a business because the childcare business drives all other business. When families that are working or in school need those typical hours, it's an important and essential business. And on the peninsula, we lost 60% of our childcare providers. And most of those were center-based programs or faith-based programs. In some cases, the smaller group sizes were in our family childcare homes, and those places were able to stay open. Everybody stepped up their cleaning and sanitizing, but then we hit a cliff and there wasn't enough cleaning and sanitizing product left. So then there was another wave of closures. So that's where we're at right now. Even though childcare is considered an essential service in our state for essential workers, the supply is not there. I'll take a breath because we've also heard from families that they're working out something else. And these are families of both healthcare providers, hospitals, cities, and grocery stores and more. So maybe you're curious about knowing more about supply and demand, but we have all had to sort of shift, and including Newport News Shipbuilding. We work very closely with them because of their new shift work, and we found some family childcare providers in the area that would take kids overnight for those interesting hours that they now have. But in the end, families chose something different, and they pieced it together with their friends and neighbors and relatives.
So Diane, with all of that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Shelley.
So I was just going to say, so with all of that said, what is it that you see are going to be some of the new trends or the things of the organizations, the schools that you're having conversations with? What do you think the future looks like?
Well, it's definitely unclear. I think some will be able to reopen, but some will not. And so then we have a call to action in our neighborhoods and our communities to figure out another way of working to support the workforce down the road as they need childcare for their young children, and as their children deserve to have a high quality early care and education experience. And you know that Governor Northam and First Lady Northam and the General Assembly put a tremendous amount of support and investments into early childhood this year in the past state budget, but it was $95 million investment, but it is all uncertain. This included childcare and early care and education experiences for some of our most vulnerable 3- and 4-year-olds. So we're not sure what's going to happen. It also included higher education for our early childhood workforce. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. It's not just about families accessing it and families being able to afford childcare and early education experiences, but it's about the training and the compensation of the workforce. These are low-wage jobs, and often the providers and teachers live on subsistence levels themselves. So that is going to have to change. If we really value a quality early childhood experience for all children, then we should have trained and well-compensated staff. I'll just say, too, that the disparities have always been there in the way that families access childcare, but they've risen to the top differently than before. Families cannot afford to pay for childcare, and sometimes they have to make a decision between their job and childcare or an early education experience. And we need innovative solutions so that all families can access both jobs that affect and help the economy and a good early childhood experience for their kids so that they can enter school with the tools they need to learn.
Okay, so you alluded to 60% of childcare providers shut down. So can you give us some hard numbers on the peninsula? How many childcare providers are open? How many kids are in childcare on average on a daily basis going through COVID?
Yeah, so one of the things that Smart Beginnings has been doing is a weekly check-in with all of the sites that are still open, and we're working with Childcare Aware Virginia to understand who's open, who might reopen. The slots are a little bit more difficult to nail down, but out of about 300 childcare centers, I didn't write that statistic down, but we have about 300 childcare centers that are usually in operation. I want to say there's only about 30 that have even been able to really provide good daytime care hours. And I'm going to just say for Hampton and Newport News, because our Smart Beginnings does cover like all 7 areas. But part of what's happened is what I said before. First of all, it's pretty impossible to give good care and keep kids apart, and that is their primary purpose, to give good care and to nurture and educate those kids. But then also they don't want to put kids at risk, so they're having to close a little early, step up their sanitizing. It's been a hard choice for these businesses. whether they take the risk to stay open to meet the needs of families, especially those that are getting childcare subsidy and have nowhere else to go, or whether they close down. So I know I kind of went around the barn there, but you know, what was already a fragile workforce and a fragile supply for families has been challenged. And so we have an opportunity to innovate going forward. And one of the things I'm really pleased about is the parent organization for all of Smart Beginnings, which is a statewide network, even though there's a local presence. It's called Virginia Early Childhood Foundation. They put together almost immediately a Back to Work Virginia task force. And it's made up of leaders in philanthropy, from the Chamber of Commerce, from health, from businesses, from counties and cities. And it's advised by parents and the childcare industry. And I really think what's going to happen is they're going to have to reconceptualize this whole business model and give support for a new way of doing business. And we're going to have to look at the true cost of quality early care and education. And I think we will have to look at employer-sponsored solutions as well. That the large employers might take this on for their staff in a different way than they had before. And we've started having those discussions with some of our employers here on the peninsula already.
So Diane, we have all 5 services, military services represented on the peninsula. We have 4 or 5 bases. I've always thought that daycare on the military bases, as a retiree myself and seen it in action, that is kind of the gold standard. They do a really good job of daycare, but then it becomes a capacity issue, right? So are you working on addressing that also for the military families?
Not necessarily for the military, because it is the gold standard. And I'll have to say, if we were going to do something, as this is my personal but also professional opinion after 40 years in the field, if we were going to do something that would stabilize the industry, we should do it like the military has done it. But we should do it in the private and the public sector combined. It is the gold standard. It is the highest quality. And so we can learn something from that model and maybe apply it to all of the other business models in childcare. I think that if we were looking at a public policy solution, that should be a part of it, to look at the models that are already provided by the military and funded in part by the government. But that's a part of it too. It's not, childcare and early care and education is not like the public school system. It's not funded by cities and towns and government. This is why what happened in Virginia was so historical, that the investment was put forth for the first time ever. And I've worked in other states where there are larger investments over time. So I think we're on to something. We just have to connect it to a business model that works, so that all families in the workforce can access childcare if they need it in the way they need it, with their choice in mind.
Shelley.
Diane, what's the best way that—
You got a question, Shelley?
Yeah, what's the best way that the large employers, or really any employer, would like to get involved in maybe the fundamental stuff that's happening through the foundation's work that you talked about? What's the best way that they can be, get a part of that, contact somebody?
Well, actually, I think I'm paying very close attention and in close touch with the people who are organizing the task force. And we have been promised that they will reach out to us in the community. And I do think that this is a part of it too, Shelley and Bob, that we're going to see a deepening role in community partnerships and local efforts to inform what could happen over time in the childcare industry as it leads to workforce development and a stronger economy. And so already Smart Beginnings is engaged across sector with all of our local partners, looking at those innovative solutions. I do think that they're going to be largely born by communities, and we have to raise our voice, make sure that we're staying in touch through our local convener like Smart Beginnings Virginia Peninsula, to make sure that our large industries and our small businesses can tell their story and how this affects their workers day in and day out. So if folks want to learn more about what's happening at Smart Beginnings and find out how to contact me, it's Smart Beginnings VP, which stands for Virginia Peninsula.org. And we will be keeping our ear to the ground, both from a policy and funding solution standpoint, and how to make sure that the local voice of local employers is heard.
Beautiful. Diane, is there anything that we didn't ask you today?
Okay, so getting...
We have an internet lag
today.
today.
Find out.
Yeah, we have an internet lag today.
Yes.
I think
Hey, so I just have
I see that. Mhm.
I have just a quick question. I mean, maybe a comment, but one of the most challenging aspects of getting everybody back to work is going to be to instill confidence. Once again, in employers, employees, families, clients, customers, depending on what the business is. In the childcare industry, let's call it, which is critical to us going back to work. Diane, what can you tell families, employers, employees that will help instill confidence in them? That because we have some data, right? You have 2,000, I heard anecdotally 2,000 kids a day on the peninsula of essential workers are going to daycare facilities. They've been safe and healthy. So what can you say to instill some confidence?
What I would say is that these childcare providers, teachers, directors, administrators, owners, they know how to welcome families every single day. That is what they do. That is why parents trust them on a daily basis. It'll be a matter of communicating what the increased standards are and who's supporting them with that. And I will end with this story because it's actually a good one. When we learned that some of the childcare providers that were open still weren't able to get cleaning and sanitizing supplies, which we know that is one of the things that they have to do. Little kids carry germs, and it's not necessarily a bubble at all from a social distancing standpoint. So we contacted Riverside Paper Supply because we had seen in the paper that they had supplies, and we worked out a procurement agreement with them. And we were able to buy kits, cleaning kits from them and deliver them to the childcare sites that were still open on the peninsula that we work with. And the sales manager that we were working with there said anything for the kids. So it's also going to be a benefit for businesses to be able to say, we stepped up and worked with these sites to make sure that they were safe so that they could welcome your kids back in a way that was healthy as well as educational and nurturing.
But the kids who have been going every day for the past 6 weeks, say, have been healthy and safe. I mean, I think they're doing a good job out there. Is that your impression also?
I think they are too. Yes, absolutely. And like I said, Smart Beginnings has been in contact with them weekly, finding out what their concerns and their needs are. We have a collective impact effort to try to work on how we can change conditions for kids over time and their well-being. And the members of those working groups are boots on the ground, informing us about what's going on and what is needed and how it's going. And for the ones that have stayed open and even the ones that have closed, everybody's anxious to get back to work and do what they love for their kids. I just think it really is going to have to look a little bit different in the future, and we're going to have to be innovative in the solutions that we seek and implement over time.
Absolutely. Over to you, Shelley.
All right. Well, Diane, thank you so much for your input and insight today, and kind of, I think, a community call to action in the businesses to think outside of the box and see what we can do to kind of continue to reopen and to reopen what that new piece is going to be in order to support our workers and the services and the education of our children. So thank you again. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, please like, share, and give us any comments or questions. We'll be happy to follow up and connect you with today's speaker. Diane, thank you again. Bob, final comments with you.
Diane, thanks for being on with us today and talking about this very important and critical component of restarting our economy. and taking care of our kids. And I look forward to being in your offices again in person for the Collective Impact Committee meetings instead of on this screen.
I agree. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your involvement and interest in this topic. It's vital to what we do going forward.
Thanks, Diane.